Sri Aurobindo has been telling us about the life goddess, how she is perpetually dissatisfied because she's carrying within her the memory of the supreme paradise from which she fell, the realm of pure bliss. We say she fell, but in a way she descended willingly. She felt the call of matter for the power of life. And so she's poured all her gifts out onto matter. But at the same time, she has been swallowed up by all the darkness and unconsciousness and perversion that is there in matter. And in a very, very poignant way, Sri Aurobindo has described to us what this means, as if this great, powerful, he calls her the great wide-winged angel. She's poured out all her gifts into the material world. And then it's as if she's just a lost child, wandering, he says, looking for paradise. But there she is, she's wandering near the gates of hell. So he has described to us how from that terrible lost state, gradually life has been able to emerge in matter, so that first of all minuscule, tiny, single-celled creatures have emerged. If we saw them, we would think, what use is that? But King Asvapati recognizes that even in these strange, slimy little creatures, there's a great promise, a promise of the future. So then he is shown the next stages, the emergence of the plant world, and then the emergence of the animal realm, and then the coming of something like human beings. He says beings who wore a human form, but they haven't yet got a human consciousness. So they behave in very inhuman ways, brutal, terrible, bestial ways. And then into that realm of crude life emerges a thin stream of mind, like a little current of pure water flowing through sea, through salty water. It's just something very thin and almost indiscernible, but he's able to see it. This first emergence of mind in animal life. We might expect then that Sri Aurobindo would continue to describe to us the development of mind. But he doesn't do that straight away. First of all, he tells us more about life. This canto is called The Kingdoms and Godheads of the Greater Life. Not anymore the little life, but the greater life. And he says that this realm of the greater life, it is something higher than that animal level, and that world, this world of greater life, inspires us with our hopes and aspirations. But within that power of life, there's, as I said at the beginning, this perpetual dissatisfaction. She cannot be satisfied. And we were just last week reading about that. I'm reading now on page 199. I'm starting on line 929. In a memory behind our mortal sense, a dream persists of larger, happier air, breathing around free hearts of joy and love, forgotten by us, immortal in lost time. It's as if the life goddess remembers that, but we can't remember it. It's as if it has never existed. A ghost of bliss pursues her haunted depths. But for she remembers still, though now so far, her realm of golden ease and glad desire, and the beauty and strength and happiness that were hers in the sweetness of her glowing paradise, in her kingdom of immortal ecstasy, halfway between God's silence and the abyss, the deep, dark gulfs of falsehood and ignorance. She remembers, and because she remembers, we also have some eternal longing for that paradise. This knowledge in our hidden parts we keep, awake to a vague mystery's appeal. We meet a deep, unseen reality, far truer than the world's face of present truth. We are chased by a self we cannot now recall, and moved by a spirit we must still become. As one who has lost the kingdom of his soul, we look back to some God phase of our birth other than this imperfect creature here, and hope in this or a diviner world to recover yet from heaven's patient guard what by our mind's forgetfulness we miss, our being's natural felicity, our heart's delight we have exchanged for grief, the body's thrill we have bartered for mere pain, the bliss for which our mortal nature yearns, as yearns an obscure moth to blazing light. Our life is a march to a victory never won. This wave of being longing for delight, this eager turmoil of unsatisfied strengths, these long, far files of forward-striving hopes lift worshipping eyes to the blue void called heaven, looking for the golden hand that never came, the advent for which all creation waits, the beautiful visage of eternity that shall appear upon the roads of time. Yet still to ourselves we say, rekindling faith, oh, surely one day he shall come to our cry. One day he shall create our life anew and utter the magic formula of peace and bring perfection to the scheme of things. One day he shall descend to life and earth, leaving the secrecy of the eternal doors into a world that cries to him for help and bring the truth that sets the spirit free, the joy that is the baptism of the soul, the strength that is the outstretched arm of love. One day he shall lift his beauty's dreadful veil, impose delight on the world's beating heart, and bear his secret body of light and bliss. But now we strain to reach an unknown goal. There is no end of seeking and of birth. There is no end of dying and return. The life that wins its aim asks greater aims. The life that fails and dies must live again. Till it has found itself, it cannot cease. All must be done for which life and death were made. But who shall say that even then is rest? Or there repose and action are the same in the deep breast of God's supreme delight. In a high state where ignorance is no more, each movement is a wave of peace and bliss. Repose, God's motionless creative force. Action, a ripple in the infinite. And birth, a gesture of eternity. A sun of transfiguration still can shine, and night can bear its core of mystic light. The self-canceling, self-afflicting paradox into a self-luminous mystery might change. The imbroglio into a joyful miracle. Then God could be visible here. Here, take a shape. Disclosed would be the Spirit's identity. Life would reveal her true immortal face. But now, a termless labor is her fate. In its recurrent decimal of events, birth, death are a ceaseless iteration's points. The old question mark margins each finished page, each volume of her effort's history. A limping yes through the eons journeys still, accompanied by an eternal no. All seems in vain, yet endless is the gain. Impassive turns the ever-circling wheel. Life has no issue. Death brings no release. A prisoner of itself, the being lives and keeps its futile immortality. Extinction is denied its sole escape. An error of the gods has made the world, or indifferent, the eternal watches time. So, 𝐂𝐋𝐕𝐈𝐋𝐿 has made already such a long journey and observed and explored so much. And he's reached from the very crude beginnings of material life to this higher life. But this is the conclusion he has come to. We are not allowed extinction. We have to go on being reborn again and again and again. And we can conclude that it's all a terrible mistake of the cosmic powers. An error of the gods has made the world. Or there's an eternal power, but it doesn't care anything about this world that is made, about us and our sufferings and our aspirations. Indifferent, the eternal watches time. Fortunately, this is not the last canto which is about life. The first canto, which starts exploring the mystery of life, is Canto 3. So we have read 3 cantos now, or we are reading the third one now. We will see that 𝐂𝐋𝐕𝐈𝐋𝐿 passes through 3 more realms before this mystery of life is in some way solved. And the poet moves on to explore the realms of mind. So let's go back to this, page 940. You'll start, Philomena?
In a memory behind our mortal sense, a dream discusses of larger, happier earth, breathing around free hearts of joy and love, forgotten by us, immortal in law's birth, are those of bliss versus her untold depths. For she remembers still, though now so far, a hidden realm of golden bliss and glad desire, and the beauty and strength and happiness that were hers, in the sweetness of her glowing paradise, in her kingdom of immortal ecstasy, halfway between God's silence and the abyss.
Yes. So we too are carrying this memory, but it's somehow hidden behind our mortal sense. Everything that we feel with our senses, our sense of touch and taste and hearing and sight, those sensations are veiling from us that memory, but it's still there in our being. It's there as a kind of dream which we are all carrying within us. A dream of a larger, happier air than this earthly atmosphere. That happier air is breathing around free hearts, hearts that are full of joy and love. We've forgotten that dream, but it is immortal in lost time, time that we have lost track of. So there's a kind of ghost, a trace of bliss is always following the life goddess wherever she goes. Her haunted depths, or the deeper levels of her being, are always remembering what should be really, no? She's remembering still, although it's now so far, far away. She's remembering her true home, her realm, her kingdom of golden ease. There's no tension or stress or trouble there. No? Golden ease, glad desire, some happy desires, not always feeling dissatisfied. She's remembering somehow the beauty and strength and happiness that were hers, that she had and enjoyed in the sweetness of that original home of hers, her glowing paradise, her kingdom of immortal ecstasy. And here Sri Aurobindo tells us where that paradise is. It's halfway between God, the silence of the Supreme, and the abyss, the black hole which King Ashwapati will have to travel into. The next canto is called The Descent into Night. In order to find the key to change this terrible situation, he will have to go down into the abyss, the black darkness. Will you read?
This knowledge in our hidden hearts, 𝐸𝐸, awake to the very mysteries appear. We meet a deep unseen reality, far truer than the birth phase of present truth. We are chased by self, we cannot now recall. Our moved by spirit, we must still become. As one who has lost the kingdom of his soul, we look back to some dark days of our birth. Other than these imperfect creatures here, and hope in this or a diviner world, to recover it from heaven's patient God. What, by our minds' forgetfulness, we miss our being's natural felicity, our heart's delight, we have exchanged for grief, the body's thrill, we barter for mere pain. The bliss for which our mortal nature yearns, as yearn an obscure mote to blazing light.
Thank you. So this knowledge of the origin, the blissful origin of life, it is in us. We keep it in our hidden parts. It is influencing us even though we may not be consciously aware of it. And if we do wake up to the call of that vague mystery, we come into contact with a deep, unseen reality, which is far truer than what we consider to be the reality of the world, the world's face of present truth. That memory, that call is always following us. We are chased by a self, our own self, that we can't remember now. And we're being moved by a spirit. There's some spirit is driving us. That's the spirit we must become. It's our future self, but we have not yet become it. But it's as if attracting us, drawing us like a magnet. We are like people who have lost our kingdom, the kingdom, divine kingdom of our soul. But there's this kind of memory and longing which makes us look back to some past time when we were more divine than now, a God phase of our birth, which is quite different from what we are here in this world, this imperfect creature we are here. And because of that attraction and that remembrance, we are hoping that in this world, or if not in this world, in a diviner world, a more divine world, we can find back. Perhaps heaven will give back to us. It's holding on to something. It's patiently guarding some wonderful reward for us. That's what we hope. We long for that we will receive from heaven. This natural felicity of our being, what should be our natural blissful state. We have lost track of that because our mind occupies so much of our attention, and the mind has forgotten about that blissful state. It's forgotten about the delight of our heart, that natural delight of our heart. We've exchanged it for grief and suffering here in this world. The capacity of our body for delight, the body's thrill, he says, we've exchanged that, we've bartered it. It's like selling away something. We've exchanged it for mere pain. We've lost the true delight. We've lost the bliss. And yet our mortal nature, this part of us which must die, is yearning for that bliss. We are yearning for it in the same way as a moth. You know what is a moth? Those night butterflies. Yeah? If we light a candle, they are so attracted by that flame, they will fly into it and get burned up. So, as an obscure moth, a little night insect, yearns in blazing light. Would you read, 𝐂𝐿?
For life is a march to a victory never won. This wave of being longing for delight. This eager turmoil of unsatisfied strength. These long far files of forward striving hopes. Lift worshipping eyes to the blue void called heaven, looking for the golden hand that never came, the advent for which all creation waits, the beautiful visage of eternity that shall appear upon the roads of time.
Thank you. So this is in a way what our life is like. It goes on, it's a long march. We're promised a victory, but we never seem to reach it. This victory is never won. And what is carrying us forward is like a big wave of existence which is longing for delight. The strengths and powers that move our lives are unsatisfied. They're always striving for satisfaction, but it's just some kind of troubled state. This eager turmoil of unsatisfied strengths. We think, oh, if I only do this, then I will be happy, then I will be satisfied. And it's as if all our hopes, our wishes, they're like a kind of pilgrim line of people, this long, far files of forward striving hopes, all our human hopes. No? They are lifting, worshipping eyes up to this blue emptiness we call heaven. And we're always hoping for that golden hand to come down and rescue us. No? But so far it never came. We're waiting for that advent, that coming of the divine being, that advent which all creation is waiting for. The appearance of the beautiful face of eternity that shall appear upon the roads of time. Always waiting for some fulfillment which never yet came. Will you read?
Yet still to ourselves we say rekindling faith. For surely one day he shall come to our pride. One day he shall create our life anew and utter the magic formula of peace and bring perfection to the scheme of things. One day he shall descend to life and earth, leaving the secrecy of the eternal laws into a world that cries to him for help, and bring the truth that sets the spirits free, the joy that is the baptism of the soul, the strength that is the outstretched arm of love. One day he shall lift his beauty's dreadful wheel, impose delight on the world's beating heart, and bear his sacred body of light and bliss.
So this is the way we comfort ourselves, with hope and faith. No? One day surely that divine advent will happen. The Lord will come. He will hear our cries for help, and He will change everything. He will create our lives anew, change them completely. He will utter those magic words that bring peace we long for so much, and perfection to the scheme of things in this imperfect world. One day He shall descend. He will leave His heaven and He will come here into our lives, to our earth, leaving the secrecy of those eternal doors that are the transcendent state that are beyond our reach. He will come here into this world that is crying to Him for help, and with Him He will bring the truth that sets the spirit free, and the joy that is the baptism of the soul that makes the soul sacred and complete. He will bring the strength that is the outstretched arm of love. In our world, however much love we have, we may not always be able to help those we love or those we see in need. No? That divine strength is needed. One day He shall lift the veil that is hiding His beauty from us. It's even a dreadful veil. It's a frightening appearance that He may have. No? He will lift that veil and we shall see His true beauty, and He will impose, He will force delight on the beating heart of the world, on the world's life. And there He will reveal His secret body of light and bliss. That is what we are hoping for, some great epiphany like that, some wonderful Savior to come and set everything right. Slava, would you read?
But now, this train to reach an unknown world. There is no end for seeing and for will. There is no end for dying and renewing. The life that wins is a freedom. There is the flail and dies must lie again until it gains self-equal for himself. It cannot
Cease, it cannot cease.
all must be done for his life and this were made. What you shall say that in them is best, or that with good and action are the same, in the deep grace of God's supreme delight. In a high state where His breath is not known,
Thank you. So we say all those comforting words to ourselves and keep up our faith and our hope, but for the time being, we are straining, struggling to reach a goal which we don't even really know what it is. And in our lives, there's no end of seeking and of birth. There's no end of dying and return. If in our life we win some victory, some aim, then it wants greater aims in its next life. And the life that fails and dies has to live again. It's compelled to live again till it has found itself. It cannot cease. Everything has to be done for each soul, I suppose. All must be done, for which this process, this repetitive process of life and death, was made for a reason. And then he says, even when we do achieve that, when everything is done, who shall say that even then there is rest? Or perhaps there, in the deep breast of God's supreme delight, repose and action are the same. It is a kind of rest, but it's a kind of active rest. We can imagine some high state in which there is no more ignorance, and every movement is a wave of peace and bliss. There, repose, the state of rest, would be at the same time God's creative force at work without moving, motionless. Action would be just a tiny little ripple in the infinite ocean, and birth into the world, a gesture, a movement of eternity. Eternity expressing itself as the world and then drawing itself back. Alexander.
The sun of transfiguration still can shine, and night can bear the score of mystic light. The self-cancelling, self-afflicting paradise into a self-luminous mystery might change. The imbroglio into a joyful miracle. That God would be visible here take a shape. Disclosed would be the Spirit's identity. Light would reveal a truly mortal face. But now, a terminus labor is perfect. And its recurrent decimal of events, birth, death, a ceaseless iteration. Points. The old question mark margins each finished page, each volume of the endless history. A leaping yes through the eon's journey still, accompanied by an eternal no. All seems in vain, yet endless is the game. Impassive turns the ever-circling wheel. Life has no issue. Death brings no release. A prisoner of itself, the being lives and keeps its futile immortality. Extinction is denied, its soul escape. An era of the gods has made the world more indifferent than eternal watches time.
Yes. Perhaps we can imagine or hope that there will be a transfiguring sun of truth that will come and change everything. Make everything divine by its wonderful light. And the darkness of the night of falsehood and suffering can maybe open up and reveal that at its very core, at the very center of it, it is full of light, of mystic light. Perhaps this paradox, this contradictory state which we seem to live in, which is self-cancelling, it contradicts and crosses itself out, and it makes itself suffer, this self-afflicting paradox, suddenly might change into a self-luminous mystery, become full of light. No? And this imbroglio, this terrible, complicated mystery there seems no way out of, an imbroglio. It can happen in real life that things get so complicated we have no idea how to untangle them. No? That imbroglio, that confusion might change into a joyful miracle. And then God could be visible here, take a shape, a body here. And then the oneness of the Spirit would be revealed, disclosed. No? Life would reveal her true, immortal face. But now, the way it is, life has to toil, a termless labor. She has to go on struggling and striving. That seems to be the fate of life. Things go on happening, and it's like a recurrent decimal. In mathematics, there are numbers where after the decimal point, series just repeat themselves. So we mark that by a dot over the last number in the series. And it's just going to repeat itself and repeat itself and repeat itself again and again. So life and death are like that. They're like the dots which show that, oh, now the series starts again. Whatever page of our lives or our experience or our evolution, we might think, oh, that's completed. It's still incomplete. There's the same old question mark as in the margin of each finished page, and each volume of each book that records the history of all life's efforts and struggles. What we are left with is this picture of a yes, some affirmation, but it is as if injured. It's limping. A limping yes goes on journeying through the eons, those immensely long periods of time, and along with it travels an eternal no, contradicting even that limping yes. Everything, we can look at life like that everything is in vain. And yet this game, this play of life goes on and on and on. There's this wheel of karma, of consequences, It just goes on turning and turning. Everything goes on. There's no way out of life. Death doesn't help at all. It doesn't help us at all. The being is like a prisoner, keeps its futile immortality. It's immortal, it can't die. But why? Why should it live? There's no escape. One would think the way out might be extinction, melting into nirvana, into some perfect or a state where there's no feelings and no sufferings. But that is not allowed. That would be the only way out, but it's not allowed. So we can come to this conclusion that this whole world is just a big mistake. An error of the gods has made the world. Or all this is just circling on and on and on, and the eternal consciousness is not interested, doesn't care. Indifferent, the eternal watches time. It's a very, very poignant conclusion to come to, and yet people who have really explored and thought about things do tend to come to this conclusion. It happens. So Aswapati is not going to remain content with this, not at all. He's going to have to go on in his journey, but it's going to take him down into the abyss, the descent into night. And then we have two very terrible cantos, the descent into night and then the world of falsehood. So we will prepare ourselves, we'll take up this next two rather difficult cantos, because at the end of Canto 8, Aswapati makes an amazing discovery, which projects him immediately up out of that abyss of terrible suffering and pain and death and falsehood. He's projected up into the paradise of the life gods. And that's a very short canto. And after that, he moves on to the worlds of mind.
In a memory behind our mortal sense, a dream persists of a larger, happier air, breathing around free hearts of joy and love, forgotten by us, immortal in lost time. A ghost of bliss pursues her haunted depths, for she remembers still, though now so far, her realm of golden ease and glad desire, and the beauty and strength and happiness that were hers in the sweetness of her glowing paradise. In her kingdom of immortal ecstasy, halfway between God's silence and the abyss. This knowledge in our hidden parts we keep, awake to a vague mystery's appeal. We meet a deep, unseen reality far truer than the world's face of present truth. We are chased by a self we cannot now recall, and moved by a spirit we must still become. As one who has lost the kingdom of his soul, we look back to some God phase of our birth, other than this imperfect creature here, and hope in this or a diviner world, to recover yet from heaven's patient guard what by our mind's forgetfulness we miss, our being's natural felicity, our heart's delight we have exchanged for grief, the body's thrill we bartered for mere pain, the bliss for which our mortal nature yearns, as yearns an obscure moth to blazing light. Our life is a march to a victory never won. This wave of being, longing for delight, this eager turmoil of unsatisfied strengths, these long, far files of forward-striving hopes, lift worshipping eyes to the blue void called heaven, looking for the golden hand that never came. The advent for which all creation waits, the beautiful visage of eternity that shall appear upon the roads of time. Yet still to ourselves we say, rekindling faith, oh, surely one day he shall come to our cry. One day he shall create our life anew and utter the magic formula of peace and bring perfection to the scheme of things. One day he shall descend to life and earth, leaving the secrecy of the eternal doors, into a world that cries to him for help, and bring the truth that sets the spirit free, the joy that is the baptism of the soul, the strength that is the outstretched arm of love. One day he shall lift his beauty's dreadful veil, impose delight on the world's beating heart, and bear his secret body of light and bliss. But now we strain to reach an unknown goal. There is no end of seeking and of birth. There is no end of dying and return. The life that wins its aim asks greater aims. The life that fails and dies must live again. Till it has found itself, it cannot cease. all must be done for which life and death were made. But who shall say that even then is rest? Or there repose and action are the same in the deep breast of God's supreme delight? In a high state where ignorance is no more, each movement is a wave of peace and bliss. Repose, God's motionless, creative force. Action, a ripple in the infinite, and birth, a gesture of eternity. A sun of transfiguration still can shine, and night can bear its core of mystic light. The self-cancelling, self-afflicting paradox into a self-luminous mystery might change, the imbroglio into a joyful miracle. Then God could be visible here take a shape. Disclosed would be the Spirit's identity. Life would reveal her true immortal face. But now a termless labor is her fate. In its recurrent decimal of events, birth, death are a ceaseless iteration's points. The old question mark margins each finished page, each volume of her efforts' history. A limping yes through the eons' journey still, accompanied by an eternal no. All seems in vain, yet endless is the game. Impassive turns the ever-circling wheel. Life has no issue, death brings no release. A prisoner of itself the being lives, and keeps its futile immortality. Extinction is denied, its sole escape. An error of the gods has made the world, or indifferent the eternal watches time.